You are listening to the Secret Teachings radio show, weekend live stream. Tonight, questions and answers from you, the listeners, streaming on X and on YouTube. Whether you're on X or YouTube, you can also visit by clicking the links or by searching our website, tstradio.info. The music you're hearing is White Bat Audio, which you can also find for free on YouTube. White Bat Audio. This is, like I said, the first time that I've done a live stream for questions and answers. Hopefully the audio sounds good and the visuals look good. There may be some of you who are new to the Secret Teachings and you don't know that this show has been on air for 15 years. That's a very long time. And it seems to me like I've gotten into a time machine and just fast forwarded into the future, because like many of you probably feel too, you can remember certain things about your life. And my early life, I remember being in high school, and I remember being out of high school and going to film school. And then there was this happenstance, this sort of random act of God that placed me into radio. And then here I am 15 years later. And it's always so incredibly humbling when people tune into the show and listen, especially if they don't agree with what I say, which is something that, of course, I would hope that you don't agree with everything I say. In fact, there are some things I say that I disagree with myself on. It's not because I'm lost or don't know what I'm talking about. It's just because my perspectives change and I'm trying to offer various different points of view. But I used to say back in those early days of radio that if just one person was influenced by the show, that I would, I would have done my job. And I think, considering the number of people who have supported us over the years and who have, well, in some cases, even changed their lifestyles and diets because of this show, or people who have chosen to spend their Saturday night with us here in the live stream on YouTube and on X, I think that means that this show has been successful. And it is not only humbling, it's actually kind of maybe the word is fantastic. It kind of feels unreal. Doesn't seem real to me. I'm still amazed at how many people listen to this show and how many people it's influenced. I see we have a lot of comments on YouTube. So this is the first time I've done this. Please bear with me. Uh, I see Huey P on YouTube. It says, you influence me. You make me think almost every day with your show. Well, that's the goal, Huey. And I would assume that you, like many other listeners, don't always agree with what I say. That's a good thing. I think it should be made very clear, especially because this is just sort of a fun weekend stream. But I should make this clear to old listeners and new listeners alike that the Secret Teachings has never been about pushing a particular narrative. There are certain things that I believe that I inject into the show that I guess you could call pushing a narrative. Like, I truly believe that we should probably not eat food colorings. Those are unnecessary, non-nutritious, and poisonous. And I've been saying that for 15 years. But other than things like that, I mean, I'm not trying to convince you to practice a certain belief system or convince you to buy something that the whole of alternative media wants you to buy. We did a show on methylene blue this last week, and like, frankly, I don't think I would. Maybe I would take it once. I don't think I'd take it consistently. And that doesn't mean that I dislike people who take it. I just think that more objectivity should be offered to subjects like that. So that's what we try to do on this show. I also think that the show is unique in the sense that I'm not a Christian right-wing conservative, which tends to be the kind of person who talks about the things we talk about. But of course, that doesn't mean that I'm the opposite of that, an atheist, left-wing libtard or liberal or whatever term you want to apply. I'm not any of that stuff. Those used to be like some of the original show promos for the show too, I would say, or I'd have someone else make a promo that this isn't about politics left or right. It's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's not about Christians or Muslims or Jews or any other group. It's just a space for communication and being entertained and also being educated. That is the goal. So I'm glad that Huey has been influenced in a positive way. Not that I've influenced him to think a certain thing, but just to think in general. Thank you, Huey, for listening to the Secret Teachings. Leyland Johnson says they've been a longtime listener as well. Thank you, Leyland. I don't think I've ever communicated with you. I don't recall your name in an email unless you've emailed me under a different name. Thank you for being a longtime listener. Of course, Jackie Byers is here. Jackie says, as one has more experience, their perspectives should evolve with them. Yes, they should. Hopefully, they don't evolve like some in the alternative media have evolved to embracing zealotry or maybe even radicalism. But, perspectives on certain things should change. They should probably stay kind of neutral as best as you can keep them as a human, because we all have biases. But yes, people's perspectives should change. That's what the show does. It changes my own perspective. I mean, I swear I listen to the show sometimes just to tweak it, close my eyes, listen to the audio to make sure the sound sounds good, make sure the subject matter comes across clear. And a lot of times I'm sitting there thinking, like, I don't remember even talking about this. Like, I don't think I even realized what I was saying, like the context or the importance of what I was saying, which then encourages me, I guess, to do another show where I kind of elaborate more. I do that with my books. I'm sure we've all done that. Sometimes we say things and do things that we don't even realize how important they are until we look back. So yes, our perspectives should change. And that's a good thing. Eyes and Ears says, what's up? Keep up the work ethic. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And despite the fact that we don't have like a giant social media web presence, I do work quite a bit on this show. I don't have all the fancy social media pages. I just don't like them, and I've also been banned. That's another thing. People ask me, "Why don't you have like an Instagram page, or why don't you have a TikTok page, or why don't you have a Gab page, or why don't you have a this page or that page?" It's like I've been doing this show so long. I've been banned from virtually everything. In fact, I've been banned from YouTube up until recently, and I have no idea why they lifted the ban, but it just popped up in my email and it said you can you can live stream on YouTube again. So I guess listeners have been asking for it, so we'll try. And here we are tonight. There are some other live shows, by the way. We did the Blue Shepherds of Easter, I think was the name of the show. That's here on the YouTube channel for free to watch. And I also did an Easter message show. It's about a 30-minute segment. There's a really good show about how Easter, the story of Easter, is actually illegal in the United States. It's not rhetoric. It's not a talking point. It's actually, by definition, under the Department of Justice's definition of anti-Semitism, the story of Jesus and the crucifixion is actually illegal to tell and to preserve and to share in the United States. So I do have a hard work ethic, but I think listeners have a hard work ethic too, especially because you have so many different options, and a lot of you are actually working when you listen to shows. That's takes a lot of effort to. I used to work and listen to shows, and it wasn't always easy to keep up with what was being said, and then also to do my job. So a lot of listeners have good work ethics. We have a lot of truckers that listen. We have a lot of people that, well, we have a good friend of ours, of course, Derek, the Night Stalker, who works while he does his stalking and has the has the energy and the wherewithal to call into shows and give very coherent observations. And so we have people like Derek that listen as well. I don't know if Derek's going to show up tonight. Here is Flux. We see Flux all the time on Spreaker. Flux, thanks for leaving us comments on Spreaker. You can leave us a review on Apple. That would really help us out. But Flux says, I agree with most of what you say. That's probably where we need to meet. Most, that's where a listener comes in, a fan comes in, but not everything. I would love to know what you disagree with, though, Flux. Those are the kinds of things we can talk about. Here's another listener. Is that Sophorus? What I appreciate is the fact that you do your research. Yes, I do. Actually, I had a listener email me last night, and they sent me 3 paragraphs, some commentary on the show. And one of the comments was, hey, when you talk about really controversial things, you should provide evidence. And I don't know if they've just never listened to really heavy shows, like really heavy controversial subject matter, or they've never really paid attention, but I do always do that. The show is audio, of course, but all the evidence is provided throughout the show. If I'm going to read you something from the Department of Justice, there's a link to the DOJ's website, either embedded in the description of the show. In the show description, there's an actual link below the description, or I just read you the headline. I tell you what to type in. You can type in whatever it is, PDF or whatever it is, or I have documents on the website for subscribers, or I've sent things in email. I mean, I don't say anything unless I have it documented and it's provable in some form. Maybe it's open to interpretation, but yes, I do research and try to provide as much evidence as possible. It's also interesting because in context, if you're just tuning into something, could be anything, and you're listening for the average, it's like 15 minutes, maybe 20 if you have a really intriguing show. I think the last time I looked at the numbers for the Secret Teachings, it was like 16 to 18 minutes, which is not a lot of time. For my introduction and for me to really build up what the show's going to be, that's like the first 30 minutes. So most people listen to half of the introduction and then they tune out. So they never hear the later parts and they just assume what the show is about. And I understand that you don't have 2 hours to sit down or even an hour to sit down and listen to everything in detail, every day, 5 days a week, and then a bunch of backlogged shows. So you just kind of assume what's being said, or it's an echo chamber and you like it because you heard something that you agree with, or you heard something you disagree with, so you don't like it. And that leads people to write reviews. And that leads people to make assumptions and write emails, and it goes that way for every show, every form of content. That's, I guess, unfortunately how it is. But I do provide the evidence and research, and if there is something I don't provide, just ask me, and I can send it to you. I mean, people have asked me, especially the Israel stuff. It's like I can show you every little piece of evidence. It's not me just speaking randomly based on something I heard somebody else said. It's stuff that I can show you the actual, records of. So yes, we do try to do that on the show as much as possible. Here is Michael, and the answer to that question, Michael M, is no, not helping. Although we did have an interesting conversation about Japanese culture last night and Shinto, some things that I did not know the Japanese perspective on, because you can only read so many books. You have to experience things directly. So I guess in some ways I ask her questions, and if it's about something related to culture or mythology, or religion's not the right word, but something to that effect, and she gives me her perspective. But otherwise, no, not really. Okay, we have a lot of comments, so let me try to go through these as efficiently as possible. And I think we're streaming still on X. I hope the X stream is working. I don't know for sure if it is, but I should check that really fast before we go any further. Yes, the X stream is working. There's people on X. Yes, 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 it's working. Well, I can't see that. So if you have comments on X, obviously drop them into the comment section below. We are on YouTube as well. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. I don't know if that's true, Michael. Underdog, more like, I don't know. I like to look at this shows. It's not in a hierarchy. It's more like I'm like a side dog. I'm like just to the side. I'm watching the other dogs fight. I don't know if underdogs the right the right term. Leland says, I used to listen to you right after the Clyde Lewis show. Yeah, we used to do the show right after Clyde, and we did that for many years, and then we got removed because Rovitics Media didn't like us quoting the Bible and quoting the Talmud and also quoting the dictionary. And that's not me being hyperbolic. I mean that literally. They didn't like us quoting the books. So I mean that goes back to what we said a second ago. You should you do research, you show your evidence. Yes, we do. And in fact, so much of it that we get removed from networks because they don't like us referencing dictionaries and encyclopedias and Bibles and Talmuds, or I mean, hell, anything, the Quran, Bhagavad Gita, Zendavesta, the list just goes on and on and on. All right, let's see what else we have here. Yes, Derek is awesome. Derek is a good guy. He said he was going to come on to do a show with us soon on symbolism, so I'm hoping that that is the case. Yes, that is probably true too, Jackie. Your YouTube ban is lifted so proof can be gathered to incriminate you for thoughts and words spoken. Absolutely. Jackie knows exactly what's going on. Oh, here's Sunny, Southern California. I'm actually working right now and listening to and I listen to the Secret Teachings quite regularly. What do you do exactly, Sunny? I feel like Sunny's told me what they do, but maybe I don't remember. So many emails, so many listeners. I apologize, but what do you do? What are you doing while you're listening to the show? That actually could be a good poll. What do you do when you listen to the Secret Teachings? Some people use it to go to sleep, and not in a negative way. Sometimes I've used my own show to go to sleep. I guess my voice just drones on and on and on. It puts me to sleep. It puts other people to sleep. But people a long time ago on some old networks, they used to say, "Hey, listen to your show to go to sleep." But it's not. I don't mean that offensively. I mean that positively. I listen, it calms me, and I go to sleep. I just never thought of the show as calming. It's usually some pretty scary stuff we talk about, or some disturbing stuff that's, again, referenceable and provable. Like I can show it to you. It's pretty scary, but I guess people tune that out and they just listen to the of the voice, and maybe that puts people to sleep. All right, let's see what else we have. I love Okay, let's here we go back to Michael. I love how TST just presents the info and allows the listeners to decide for themselves. Yeah, most of the time, hopefully, that's what the show comes across as. Sometimes not. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes there are things that are just irrefutable, and you can choose to believe it. But like I'm showing you what it is. Like there's no way to deny that that's what it is, depending on what the story is or what the information is. But yes, most of the time it's about letting listeners make the decision for themselves. Here's another listener, Andrew Masonet, Mutt K9, longtime listener, love your content and knowledge. Will keep listening. Thank you, Andrew. Can I ask you, what do you like content wise? What kind of content do you like? Although I don't like that word. What kind of subject matter do you like? I don't like the idea of being a content creator. It's more like a presenter. I don't like the idea of creator. But anyway, yes, content knowledge. Well, what do you like about the show? What's your favorite subject? Yes, Flux, maybe the roundabout dog. And Leyland, yes, it's because, well, we're not just over the target. We're sitting in the middle of the target on the ground. And I can show you things, and then people get upset about that. But like if I did, think about this. People want me to do more YouTube and more shows like this, or actual shows. This is more of just a regular live stream Q&A. But if I did even a fraction of those super controversial shows, let alone all of my shows, and just had everything on YouTube, it would have all been removed before. In fact, that did happen to a lot of my shows. Everything got removed. So there needs to be an archive where things can be preserved. I've got that archive here on my hard drive. I've got that archive on Spreaker. I've got that archive on my computer. So I've got various different archives where if it is pulled from these platforms, I have a backup of it, as opposed to just doing it on YouTube or some other platform where it can just be stripped, which again goes back to what I was saying about social media in general. People tell me I should get on this platform or that platform. I've been on those platforms. I've gotten banned from those platforms. In fact, I had a Gitter account, and Gitter will not let me log back into the account. My account is locked. So I don't know what to do. I've been doing this for so long, and people ask me to do things that everybody else are doing. It's like, buddy, I was doing that before these people ever conceived of doing a show, and my stuff was getting canceled and deleted, or whatever you want to call it. So unfortunately, that's the way it is. Andrew says, I listen while driving, my driving job here in Los P, wherever that is. I listen while doing my driving job. I assume a lot of listeners are drivers, because I had a lot of listeners tell me that. Oh, Las Vegas. Okay. Las Vegas. Let's see what else we have here. Who's Cole Cushman? Lily Nova didn't discuss getting attacked by reptilians or saying your name for $75 or being a Nazi general in Ground Zero the other night. Was she on? I don't think she's the Nazi general, Cole. I think that was Marina Serena, I think was her name. I'm trying to learn something, every day of my life. I've tried to delete, like SpongeBob, where they shred his name. Sometimes I have to shred names. I think I shredded that girl's name because it was a useless, worthless thing to know, but I think it was Marina Serin. She was the Nazi general. Lily Nova's the one who contacted the Miami Mall aliens by remote viewing, which is impossible because you can't remote view something directly that you know what the target is. She also gave me one of these at the conference. I was talking to a friend of mine. I won't say who it was, big famous person. And they said, hey, Lily, come over here and talk to me for a second. And she gave us one of these and walked away because she didn't want to be associated with me. Yeah, she's a real crackerjack space cadet. And I would say that to her face, but she turned her face away from me and walked away from me. But yeah, I think that was Marina Serin is the girl who did that. The Nazi general. She's the one that sold she was the Nazi general and sold like foot fetish videos, or I think she was a foot fetish princess, but that was not Lily Nova. So Let's just make that clear. And Leslie Nova's also a foot princess. Maybe she is. I don't know. Maybe I should be a foot princess. I guess if you're a foot princess and you get eaten by aliens like David Wilcock, you make a lot of money. Foot princesses and people who have been eaten by reptilians, that's where the money is, folks. It's not in being objective or telling people things that they don't want to hear. It's real. Maybe I should look it up. She's a foot princess. B. Oops, it went away. B. Kunha. Occult, esoteric topics, and synchronicities. Yes, that is really that's my heart. That's the foundational core of this show. I wish I could show you my bookshelf. It's right on the other side of this wall. It is packed with mostly texts on those subjects. Although I had probably 500 books at one point. I got down to 300. A lot of them were really old and falling apart. They weren't rare, so I got rid of them. And then I had to get rid of even more to move over here to Japan. I mean, I could have shipped them, but USPS, UPS, FedEx, these companies wanted, I think UPS wanted $500 or $600 for a small box of books. It's an insane amount. So it's like I could just buy the books again if they were that important. But I got down to the core, and the core is essentially those books, occult, esoteric topics, and synchronicities. Those are the best when you make all the connections. Yes, like a Super Bowl show. I like the old music shows. We should do more of the music shows. The music shows are really fun. Well, I think I did something recently on like a music show. We did that Abracadabra video by Lady Gaga. So that show, I wonder what episode that was. It was, I probably could find it in the archive here real quick. But that episode was kind of like an occult synchronistic show, kind of out of the ordinary of the recent types of shows that I've been doing. But yeah, those are some of my favorite shows as well. Actually, I just found it. It is. That's a really good show. I'm glad that you mentioned those kinds of connections here. Let me remove the show logo, and I can show you my screen and some shows that you might have missed. Here's a list of some of the shows you might have missed. Tay Voodoo and Abracadabra, Red Queen of Snakes. This was a really interesting show, which is right up the alley of this comment here from B. Kunha. This was about Taylor Swift voodoo, which is a thing. Taylor Swift voodoo and the Abracadabra song. It was around the time of Valentine's Day. Abra Inanna, there's another Valentine's show. Yeah, those are my favorite shows too. It's also really weird when you do 5 shows a week and you've done it for, well, I've done 5 shows a week for probably 6, 7, 8 years, and I've done radio in general for 15. And then someone will email you. It's understandable if they're a new listener, but if they're an old listener, like I've listened since WPRK Rollins College back in 2010. Have you ever done a show on Freemasons? I don't think you were listening to my show. Of course, we've done a show on Freemasons. It kind of gets frustrating. Have you ever done a show on symbolism? You listen 5 nights a week and you don't know that that's the core of the show. Sometimes listeners are really funny, but I guess maybe sometimes there's misunderstandings too, because people have told me they listened to my show and then they ask me questions. I'm like, that's not my show. That was somebody. I don't know who that person is. That's literally somebody else's show. Oh, that's funny. Okay, here's another listener, D. Hodges. I'm a police dispatcher. Well, I would hope that you're actually paying attention to your job and not just listening to the secret teachings. Got an emergency, but you're over here listening to me talk about symbolism. Michael loves all the connections as well. I mean, I think everybody really loves the connections. Those are some of the best shows. Here's Cole Cushman. Can you put the German atomic bomb on the best of weekend show? That's another really good show. Quite frankly, I don't know what episode that was because I've talked about it on several episodes, but I could pull up the document. In fact, I think it was on X. There was a yeah, okay, so I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about history. He's a big history guy. He might even be listening right now. If he is, he knows who he is, but we were talking about history, and, we talked about this study or more of a survey that was conducted by the Germans, and, it was about dropping I think it was a 17 kiloton nuclear weapon on Manhattan, or at least detonating it over the city. And we tried to find the document. I have a copy of it in my archive on my hard drive, and I was on my phone, so I couldn't pull it up that way. And he ended up finding it on some website, and we were looking at this document, and I asked Grok, kind of in a I mean, I was serious, but also kind of sarcastic. I was like, "There's no way Grok's going to know anything about this." So I asked Grok, "Hey, was there ever a survey done of the dropping of an atomic bomb on Manhattan?" And Grok said, "No, there's no evidence of anything like that." But Grok took about 237 seconds to think about it, which is pretty long for artificial intelligence or for a complex search system like that. And then I gave Grok the document, and Grok said, oh, it appears that there was a German study done about dropping an atomic bomb on Manhattan. That's really interesting." And then Grok was like, "I guess I got that one wrong." Yeah, you definitely got that one wrong, Grok. So you can't always trust Grok. But yeah, there's a couple of different shows I've done where we talked about that potential. They called them the Ameribomber. They had Ju-390s, these planes that were prepared to bomb. Yeah, here's an image of it. I'll show you on the screen where they prepared to bomb Manhattan. It was an air base in France, Western France, at the end of the war. There's even a Washington Post article about it. But there's the actual document. Grok's never heard of that before. So all that power that goes into AI, and my friend found this on the internet. Grok couldn't find it. Maybe that was convenient for Grok. There are so many things that we could sit here and do like an entire day's worth of content. So we don't have I don't have to stop on every comment and try to pull something up, but there's one example. I mean, I could pull up in my hard drive. I like to show evidence, and I know that it sounds fantastical, but I could pull up in my hard drive right now. I think I have the Washington Post article. I think I have all of that stuff. Let me just take a quick glance at my hard drive and see. I don't even know what it would be called. German atomic bombs or something. Let me look at it real quick. German or atomic, something like that. Ah, okay, maybe I found it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I think I found it. See if I can pull up. All right. Well, this will probably get the channel take, taken down after it's right back up. But let's go ahead and do this. Just going back to what Cole said here, we can pull up the document. This is in the archive, by the way. If you're a subscriber to the Secret Teachings, you can scroll through all of our stuff. So I used to make these documents for myself for like records. These were shows that I did. So these are just like notes that I had taken a long time ago. And then here's the actual German study. And then here's the Washington Post article. If you want to pause and screenshot that, I'll take not Coleman. I'll take Cole's post down there. You can actually look at that and read it. Hard to find that on the internet. And I think there's also, yeah, here is from U.S. military intelligence where they're talking about the German atomic bomb. See that? And then here are some records of German pilots seeing things like one of them was a mushroom cloud. I think they described a mushroom cloud. Um, Scroll through, here are some documents. These are about the atomic bomb, origin of the atomic bomb. And there was originally like a news article that had published some of this stuff, and then it got pulled. But yeah, that's the document. That's largely the kind of stuff that you can get in the subscription service on the website tstradio.info. It's all in alphabetical order, but in alphabetical order by how I chose to word it when I first saved it. So like the German one might be under German, or it might be under atomic bomb. I think it's under German, which is, I think, file number 2 if you're on the website for subscriptions. But yes, I would like to stop at every single comment and show the evidence for things, but sometimes you just have to trust me that I've got it. There's a record of it. I'm not just saying things. The Germans actually potentially had the capability of dropping an atomic bomb on New York, and the magnitude of that bomb was equivalent to one of the bombs that were dropped on Japan. And there were also Japanese scientists who reportedly worked on that bomb. So it was an extra FU to the Japanese as well. And that is a controversial history. I'll tell you where I learned that from. I didn't believe it when they told me until they showed it to me. But my good friend Jim Mars, and then he showed it to me, the document, and then I did additional research and found those records about the A bomb in the U.S. military archives. And it's like, oh, so they did probably have something close to that. They say they didn't have anything. Well, they had different. We're not going to get into this whole thing, but there's plutonium, there's uranium, there's also different types of experiments the Germans were engaged in that might have been classified higher than an atomic bomb. So why didn't they use it? Well, maybe they were working on something else. Maybe it was just happenstance that they weren't able to accomplish that toward the end of the war. There's a lot of things that could come into play. All right, let's go back to the comment section. There's a lot of comments. I'm so sorry that I'm getting really behind. Andrew says, I like whatever you talk about, but love when you talk about comparisons between different gods and demons and how they impact the entertainment business. That is a fun one, especially the Balenciaga. Remember Balenciaga, where they had the picture of the kid and they spelled Balenciaga kind of wrong? Because if you spell Balenciaga, here, I'll show you how I do research, okay? Let me show you the screen so you can see how easy this is for you likewise. So if you just type in Balenciaga, I don't know if I can spell that right. Did I spell that right? No. Okay, Balenciaga is spelled. You see how Balenciaga is spelled? Balenciaga. Okay, if you type in Balenciaga children ad yellow tape, it should pull it up. I think it's this one. Yeah. A lot of people have picked this up long after the fact, but I'm pretty sure that this was the first show to point this out, maybe with the exception of Vigilant Citizen. And you can see they covered that up. I want to find the actual full picture. Here's an example. I guess there's an example of the zoomed in. Okay, here's the picture. You can see they spelled ball, Baal. That's convenient, isn't it? Because that's not how you spell Balenciaga, but that's how you spell ball, as in the demon ball. That's not a coincidence. That's also, yes, one of my favorite kind of shows as well, Andrew. Flux, yes, after the Super Bowl show. Yeah, we did the Super Bowl show, and then it would have been Valentine's Day right after that. That would have been and we did the Abracadabra song because they were promoting the Abracadabra song during the Super Bowl. Sonny is servicing swimming pools, listening to the secret teachings. TST does put me to sleep. I hope you don't fall in the pool. Actually, it does or doesn't. He said, does put me to sleep. It actually wakes me up, not woke, to what's taking. Oh, okay. It puts you to sleep, but it wakes you up to what's going on in the world. So don't fall asleep in the pool, Sonny. Good luck with that. Kind of miss pools. I grew up in Florida. We used to have pools everywhere. Here's Jackie again. Enjoy it when you are on with Ryder Lee. Great conversations. I think Ryder just did a show a few minutes ago. He finished right before our show came on. Maybe he'll jump in the conversation. Who knows? I jumped in his a little bit ago. Yes, Ryder's a good guy. One of the very few who actually are, I'd say, objective is the right word about things and doesn't just go with the narrative. And hey, look who else showed up. Chris from the UK. Chris did a really good job on that Ground Zero website. Look, Ground Zero doesn't pay me. There's kind of a courtesy affiliation, but I can say this honestly. Chris did a great job with the website. I love Clyde. Clyde and I have kind of a father-son relationship / colleague relationship. Ron is also a really good friend of mine. I know Wes really well too. We're like hockey friends. Ground Zero is one of the very few last places where you can get, I would again say, like with Ryder, objective information. Clyde and I don't agree on everything necessarily, but it's pretty objective. Clyde has a skill where he's able to sort of tiptoe on the edge of highly controversial without falling in. I, on the other hand, like to back up from the edge and then run as fast as I can and then jump into the controversy. That's the only thing that makes us different. Maybe because Clyde's done it for 15 years longer than I have. And at 15 years, I'm like pretty fried. So maybe that's where I'll be at, 30 years in radio. Hodges says, hello, Chris. Yes, hello, Chris. Thank you for tuning in to the show. I did not expect Chris to be here. Matt says, welcome to YouTube. Well, thank you for listening. Welcome to the first Q&A stream. More like a comment and response stream. A CNR, not a Q&A, but a CNR. Michael Stone says, Art Bell used to have open lines on his show. It would be nice if you could devote 20 minutes of each show to open lines for feedback. In any case, it's a great show, Ryan, and keep up the great work. So another one of these interesting things where in the past I had done calls. In fact, I used to do calls with every show for probably 5 years on networks that were online and digital. And then before that, I used to do calls on WPRK. So I think I've done calls for over half of the time the show has been on air. There's one problem with calls. There are a lot of really smart and intelligent people and people that have things to add that I did not know and can correct me sometimes and educate me, educate the audience. That's all good. But with opening calls up, you also get people that are not so good. And that's just the nature of reality. That's the nature of radio reality. But the reason that I don't do the calls is primarily because I like the show to be a presentation. And it always irritates me when I listen to, like if I listen to Ground Zero with Clyde and he's on a roll and he's just boom, 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 knocking things out. And then suddenly someone calls in and you have to do the old Art Bell thing, because in the background you hear, turn your radio down. And, oh, I didn't know my radio was on. Well, how are you listening? And then, am I on air? Yes, you're on air. Go ahead. And it's silent. Sir, you're on air. Go ahead. Am I talking to Ryan Gable? Yes. In fact, I think one person did that one time and I said, no, this is not Ryan. You've got the wrong number, and hung up on him because it just gets, ridiculous. However, I understand, and I'm trying to be more open to that kind of thing, Michael, especially since we don't have a lot of social media. So that's what these YouTube shows are for. I'll try to it'd be nice to do a stream like this every weekend, but I can't always commit this to the weekend because my wife's job is all over the place. And because if I do it on the weekend too, then I have no time off, which is not a big deal. I would work 7 days a week. I would do a show every day of the week if there was a guaranteed income to pay the bills. And there's not. It fluctuates drastically. So if there was a guaranteed thing there, I could do like 7 days a week. But I will try to do more of these weekend things like this. It would be nice if I could do it every weekend, maybe every other weekend. So whatever you hear during the week, make a note of it. Okay. And make a note of it, email me, whatever. I don't know, email it to me, or just save it and then jump into the weekend chat and ask me those questions. And again, I understand what Michael's saying. I would like the same thing, but also I'm trying to maybe do a presentation like show most of the time, and calls don't fit into that as much anymore. And we can kind of use the weekend stream like this to facilitate that. At least that's the goal. Payback for the USS Liberty. What's that in context with? Did I must have missed a comment. Yeah, people will see that. He put the USS Liberty on screen. Look at that. He hates juice boxes. Weren't there reports from Russian pilots about a mushroom cloud? I know there was a report from somebody flying a Heinkel bomber, and I know that there was a report from an Italian correspondent. So there was an Italian and a German. I can't say one way or the other, Michael, but I would assume that the Russians would have known about it. I mean, the Americans knew about it, so I'd assume they were much closer to Germany than we are. So I'd assume the Russians would have known about it. It's like, why haven't we been told? Well, it just isn't. It isn't necessary history, just like it isn't necessary history to tell people that even the United States military was very distraught over what the British did to Dresden. And it's like we're not supposed to talk about that or something. And then if I bring up the fact that the US targeted civilians in Japan before Nagasaki and Hiroshima, then I'm just like a Japanophile and I have an obsession with Japan. It's like, no, they also did that to Germans. They also the largest displacement of people. I think it's considered the largest displacement of people in the history of the world was the displacement of 14 million Germans at the end of World War II. Did you know that? Probably not, because they don't tell you that in school, but it's verifiable. It's called the flight and expulsion of Germans. And it's actually something that you can probably read in basic encyclopedias, major universities. If you're probably high level like history, which I was, that's probably why I know about it or I've read the books. But that's just not something, because that doesn't fit the narrative. We got 14 million Germans were expelled and removed from their homes, and we slaughtered, conservatively estimated, 200,000 civilians at Dresden, and then another couple 100,000 between Tokyo, Nagasaki, and Hiroshima. The numbers are kind of up in the air. I don't think they even know the exact number of people who died, but it's a very large amount, of course. But that's, who cares, right? Because they're Japanese, right? Or who cares because they're German, or who cares because they're Russian, or because they're whatever. Which, by the way, I feel the same way about Jews. Like, I don't think that people should hate other people and religions, but I don't want to put my foot down this path, because then I'm just going to go off on a rant. But I think that all people of all religions and all ethnicities, I don't think it even needs to be said, like, have a right to exist. You don't have a right to impose your ignorance and violence on other people. But like, that's not okay. I'm just going to leave it at that. We don't need to get into this. This is not a show. This is a comment stream. Did I already put this up by Sonny, or did you post this again? I think he posted it again. The long form format is a lost art, especially in the drive-through society. That is very dry. I like that drive-through society. That is what it is. I'll take a large fry, and I'll take a burger and a milkshake, and can I get some extra ketchup, and can I get a drink and that is basically what it is. You just pick and choose what you like. Jordan Maxwell's straw man topic has always fascinated me. You mean like the straw man fallacy? Because that fallacy is used all the time. Fallacies are really interesting. I used to do shows on fallacies. Once in a while, I would just pick a list of fallacies and then do a show on fallacies. And it's kind of a timeless presentation, is what it is. I think I've done two. I remember one back in WPRK that era, and I did one maybe 3 years ago. Funny thing, though, that you say straw man, because I actually pulled up for this stream tonight a list of fallacies, and there's the straw man fallacy on the screen. And I pulled this up because I was thinking, if someone were to just sit down and look at what like these fallacies are, it's not like some hidden thing. It's just like a standard psychological overview of a fallacy. An ad hominem attack where you attack the person rather than the argument. Anecdotal stories. You know, I was there, so I know. Well, your perspective. Appeals to emotion, which is what virtually every piece of propaganda that we read, every advertisement, every form of marketing applies to these types, or these fallacies apply to those types of things. The bandwagon argument, everybody's doing it, begging begging the question, we need to cut spending as too much money is being spent. Black and white fallacies, these are pretty common. If you read through these fallacies, there's fallacies, the burden of proof fallacy, the card stacking fallacy, fallacy, the false cause fallacy, and the list goes on and on, including the straw man fallacy. These are things that are incorporated into everyday life, like every conversation, every discussion, every debate, every post, every comment, every news show, every radio show, podcast, every presentation, every thought we have, it seems, is driven by one or more fallacies. That's pretty much how all of our discussions and debates go, if they're even really technically debates. Because a debate is where you get together and you have disagreements, but you can respect each other. And then at the end, hopefully you learn each other. In fact, when the Greeks used to debate, that was the goal of the debate. At the end of the debate, you shook hands and you agreed on something that you did not know before, that the other person presenting the argument had made a good point, and you can agree on that. And maybe they see your point of view. That's a debate. A debate is not douche versus a turd sandwich, which is pretty much all our discussions are about, pertaining to pretty much anything. Matt says they had a New York bomber. Yes, they did have the Amera bomber. And I could even show you the JR 390. It's funny how I had no idea I'd talk about this stuff tonight, but I can pull it up real fast. JU 390. I don't trust History's Mysteries any more than the History Channel, but this is a relatively well known, discussed. I don't trust, these kind of artistic renderings, but that they did have an Amera bomber. In fact, that article that I showed you, I think it was the Washington Post, talked about these JU 390s. Bomb New York. That would have changed. That's the Man in the High Castle stuff right there. Pretty fascinating. Reportedly, they flew all the way. I feel compelled to show it to you again. There's a picture reportedly from one of the flights. Let me see. I have a PowerPoint presentation on it. Let me see if I can find it. I have no idea if it's in this presentation. I did a bunch of presentations at that bookstore Nexus, my friend Andrew in Tucson, and I did a presentation where I mentioned this, but I can't recall which one it was. I did 2 demon presentations, a symbol presentation. It's got to be in one of these. Anyway, yes, there's supposedly even a picture of that. Oh, I just found the presentation on what we were talking about earlier. Oh, there's just so much good and disgusting and disturbing stuff. I don't even know if I should pull that up. That's that's going to take 2, 3. We've already done that. We've been doing this for an hour already. I could sit here all day. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's the one about alien. I did a UFO presentation. It's the UFO one. It is. I think it is the UFO one. Okay, let me bring up the UFO one and I'll show you that there supposedly is a picture. Maybe more than 1,000-mile range, but yeah. Reportedly, a woman actually piloted this mission. Let me get rid of this, and we can open up the presentation. This is a slideshow that I did at a bookstore in Tucson. And let me see if I can pull up. It's a UFO presentation. Here we go. Here's the Werner Heisenberg report from 1939 that they have the ability to manufacture nuclear fission bombs. Here is Germany testing the bomb before the United States. Here's that same document I showed you earlier, German atomic bomb. Yeah, this is report. I don't know. I don't think that this is true. I think that this is fictional, but this image right here in the top left of your screen is supposedly the image they took. It is way too level and low to be real. I don't think it's real, but that's reportedly the image. Here is the Junker Ju-390. These are the actual photographs. See, I don't just make things up. There's the proximity study again. You know, that I don't know why atomic aliens. I don't know why I included that in that presentation. It's a good presentation, though. That's a good presentation. I should do another presentation on that on YouTube. Okay, I'm like way behind in these comments. I always have to laugh at that screen name. Sweet live stream, thank you. Maybe he's pounding rice for the Japanese New Year. Let's see what else we have here. Yes, ball. You're welcome, Chris. Howdy there. What is the name? Morden Kitty? That's in Mordor Kitty. For a second, Mordon Kitty. Yeah, oh yeah, the MTV award breakdown. Did you see that the recent award show where they had the Stargate portal? Another thing I'd have to pull up and show you. I have that somewhere saved. Flux says, Sarah, where is Sarah? Oh, you are Morden Kitty. Hello, Sarah. This is great. Thank you. I'm glad that you think it's great. We're making YouTube great again here. Thank you. I am a sarcastic asshole. Mitch says, that was pretty cool when you sent in the recorded message for Clyde to play. If you are still unable to call, that is definitely a good alternative. I'm just glad that they actually played it. I think one of the cool calls that I did, the one this week was like political, but I did that call about the Hello Kitty. That's a creepy story. And the Japanese dolls from, what were they, like 16th, 7th, I think it was 17th century, called karakuri puppets. And there's actually, my wife actually saw these in a museum. They're like a kind of mechanized puppet. And it sounds fantastic. 17th century mechanized puppets. Well, the Egyptians, mainly Hall wrote about how the Egyptians, they used to make statues look like they were moving as part of rituals or to scare people, more so rituals. It was all a symbolic representation of something, but they would make the statues seem to be mechanical. And here is, because it kind of sounds hard to believe, but the Japanese had these little puppet dolls back in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. They used to serve tea. See some image of these. The mechanical dolls that would serve tea, but they were mechanical. I think these are replicas, but they're very old dolls. I think this is from the museum. Yep. It's pretty cool. Mechanical. And again, if you want to pronounce that correctly, it is karakuri. Karakuri ningyo is what that one. Ningyo means mermaid. I don't know if that's a mermaid doll, but it's a karakuri puppet. Ningyo is a mermaid in Japan. If you want to see that. This is one of the old pictures. Yeah, it's like a mermaid type thing. It's actually more like 80% fish, and then like a fraction of that is the head. But oh, there's me. Sorry about that. But that's the Ningyo in Japan. A lot of really cool mythology over here that does synchronize with the rest of the world because Japanese are just like everybody else. We all see the world pretty similar way. I think I'm so far behind in these comments, like I'm seeing things that stuff I mentioned 45 minutes ago. Let me scroll through this a little bit and see. I'm assuming, Flux, you mean Dresden. Yes, Dresden was by definition literally a holocaust, because a holocaust by definition, not the Holocaust, but a holocaust by definition, is, as Flux obviously knows, mass death by fire. Now, you can redefine it, but even the dictionaries today will still define that term as this: great destruction resulting in the extensive loss of life, especially by fire, which is what they did to Dresden. It's what they did to Tokyo. It's what they did to Hiroshima, and it's what they did to Nagasaki, among, I think I read 68 additional European cities. And even the Americans at Dresden were like, whoa, this is evil. We shouldn't be participating in this with the Royal Air Force. But, not supposed to talk about that. Okay. Why do news get special treatment over Native Americans? Well, I'm assuming you're speaking in code. You shouldn't speak in code. You should ask the question. But if that's the question you're asking me, Native Americans don't have the same kinds of cultural cohesions that the news do. That's probably part of it. And the Native Americans also don't condemn you to feces if you disagree with them. There's some other listeners. Reverend Bill, lives have intrinsic value. I agree with that. I think lives do have intrinsic value. And I think that there is life in everything. In fact, when we talk about God being all knowing, all powerful, all present, etc., when I was talking to my wife last night, I asked her, I said, how would Japanese define Shinto? Because it's not a religion. And she said, God way. And I said, well, I know it's God way, but how do they define it? She said, just God way. And I have to change my perspective because, people think differently. My wife thinks differently. And in Japanese, it's just very strict and very simple, God way. But when I got into discussing it with her, we talked about trees, talked about kawa, rivers, rocks, iwa, and how these things have spirits. And I said, is that kind of like animism? And she said she didn't know what animism was. So I showed her the definition. And she said, yeah, I guess it's kind of like that. In other words, Shintoism or animism, which is supposed to be one of the oldest recorded forms of spiritual practice or religion, animism is the idea that everything has a spirit to it, particularly things in nature. So all those things, as Reverend Bill says, I don't think that's what he's referring to. Assuming Bill is a he and not a she. Don't want to misgender Bill, the Reverend. But Reverend Bill, yes, life has intrinsic value, and I would say that that applies to rocks and to water. I think that applies to everything. Maybe you disagree by the term Reverend. Maybe you're Christian. Maybe you disagree. But I think all things, God's creation, whatever you want to call it, has value. And that doesn't mean that I think gang members who rape and murder people have more value. What it means is that on the surface, we treat animals and humans and nature and even, the things you own. Like if I have a book, I treat my book with respect because I paid for it. There's energy that goes into it. I'm not going to destroy it. I don't want to have to buy another one or have it fall apart. But we take care of things. When someone does something really bad, like if they're a gang member that rapes and kills, then yeah, there are consequences, and there should be consequences, harsh consequences for those kinds of things. I don't know why that's a really hard thing for some people right this moment to grasp politically. The MS-13 gang members don't have due process. Well, who said that they did? We're not talking about MS-13 gang members. The complexities of this stuff, it just right over the head of those folks for some reason. Pound Town says, Ryan, I have it. Again, I think it's a funny, again, maybe he's pounding. They used to pound rice over here for the New Year's cakes, rice cakes, the mochi. Maybe he's pounding away at these race cakes. I haven't seen you do a show with Joe Roop in a while. It would be nostalgic to see him or as a guest on your show. Also been looking for your raps. Yeah, I used to make those funny raps. I made one about David Wilcock. I could probably play that, but I don't want to embarrass myself. Uh, yeah, I made a rap about David Wilcock that and Jordan Sather, and I made some recent ones too. But I cannot be that unhumble and play. I can't play myself rapping about David Wilcock on this stream. You can't convince me to do that. But yes, it is out there somewhere, and maybe I'll ask Joe Roop to come back and we'll do a show soon. I actually think I still have I still have a show that Joe and I did a few months ago in video format on StreamYard. So maybe I can find that and throw that up on YouTube here for free. I will look into that for a PT. What else do we have here? Same here, 1232. What do you think the solution is for the crime and corruption in our country? Martial law might be needed. Martial law is not needed. Martial law is, in a constitutional republic, never needed, because once you institute it, there will never, ever be a constitutional republic again without a lot of blood being shed. Crime and corruption needs to be dealt with at a local level. And everything that our government does, and by our government, I mean America, is the old adage of when you have a hammer or when you are a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the federal government has certain responsibilities to preserve the rule of law domestically. So, for example, when Portland was overrun with vandals and crime and essentially a de facto form of light insurrection and light treason, to quote Arrested Development, the president had the authority and neglected to use that authority to send troops in to Portland in particular to deal with what was happening there. That's one of the very few things the president actually can and should have done. He neglected to do that, and he should have done that. In terms of crime, well, crime just needs to be dealt with. So there needs to be harsh penalties for harsh crimes, and there needs to be the enforcement of laws. We already have laws. It's already against the law to go out in the street and kill somebody. It's already against the law to even panhandle in most places. They just don't enforce it. So there needs to be enforcement of it. And if the reaction is instead of trying to enforce the law, it's just like, we'll just have to have martial law. Martial law is not law. Martial law is the suspension of law. It is the giving of the government total authority and the stripping of the authority away from citizens. You don't want to live under martial law. That's the bottom line. You don't want to live under martial law. And if you think, well, Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. Yeah, and Lincoln also didn't believe that blacks and whites were considered equal as human beings. Doesn't mean Lincoln was a terrible guy, but I don't think that just because someone else did it, that we should do it now today. Although there is kind of a parallel to it, because Lincoln was doing those kinds of things because of the nullifier in the Democrat Party that was just totally crazy. I mean, they were the first ones to execute members of Congress, assassinations, and so on. So there's a parallel to that. But really, if you really go down to the core of it, it's a local problem. Mayors, governors need to do something about it. But see, our governors and our mayors won't do anything about it, because what's the governor of Texas interested in right now? He's interested in criminalizing memes and criminalizing speech against a foreign country, and interested in giving taxpayer dollars away to a foreign country. Like, I don't think people understand the United States is so overwhelmingly corrupted and so overwhelmingly infiltrated at every level by more than one group and one ideology. There really isn't a solution to this problem that is easy. And whatever that solution is in a constitutional way, it's not martial law. We don't need to declare martial law. We need to enforce the law. And if there's a judge refusing deportation of violent criminals, the judge should be dealt with in a legal, lawful way, not stripping rights away from the average American. And I'll stand by that, and that's a hill that I'll die on. Let's see what else we have in the comment section. Oh, there's a good question. Michael M. Those are my devil horns, Michael. You see? Devil horns. I'm a demon. That is called an enso, or enzo, Ensoenzo. The story of the enzo is perfection. It's a circle, it's perfection. It's kind of like, has the same meaning as the wedding ring. It's perfection, it's eternity. But what it represents is when you have the right state of mind, in say calligraphy, for example. It doesn't have to be calligraphy, but it's usually calligraphy. You take a brush and the monk would paint the circle. And when you're able to reach a state of enlightenment, you're able to do it in one clean stroke of the brush. Now, that's a serious answer. The humorous answer would be SpongeBob trying to draw the perfect circle, and he draws the really complex face. And then he draws, I love SpongeBob, by the way. He draws the really complex face, and then he erases some of the more complex details. And then there you have it, a perfect circle. And then Squidward's circle looks like, I'm just a child at heart. Well, first I draw this head, then I erase some of the more detailed parts, and then there it is, a perfect circle. Well, that's essentially what it is. It's a perfect circle, and it represents your ability to control, well, like Solomon and his demons, your ability to control your demons, your ability to focus, your ability to have a sense of perfection, enlightenment, and that's what the circle represents. And again, it's eternity. It's a good question, really good question. Leyland Johnson, have you ever done a show on the mud floods from the last Great Reset? You're not going to like the answer to that question. Yes, I've done several shows on that. I did one called Never Go Full Retartardia, and I did another one recently that has nothing necessarily to do with the mud floods, but it has to do with the World's Fair conspiracy, which, let's just put it this way, is probably pushed by the intelligence community. As I've shown you already tonight, you can't trust everything you've been told about history based on the stuff we were looking at with the atomic bombs in Germany. However, right now in Japan, in Osaka, there is that's a good question, actually. We'll keep that on the screen. There's a fair going on right now in Osaka, and it is a world fair. It's called the Osaka 2025 Expo. I will show it to you on the screen. I was actually just in Osaka. This here is called the Grand Ring. The Grand Ring is made out of wood. Japan is very famous for its wood. And they built this Grand Ring in about 2 to 3 years, roughly. And it goes all the way around the expo. Now, if I remember this correctly, this is all at the top of my head. They built this on an artificial island, which is where the airport there is in Kansai. And it is called Yume Shima, which is dream. I think it means dream island. Yume is dream. Shima, I think it's Dream Island or something to that effect. But it's an artificial island. They chose to build this. I think it covers 0.6 square miles, about half a square mile. They could have built it bigger, but it's one, on an artificial island, and two, it's meant to represent this expo sustainability. So they built it. It's about 0.6 square miles in size. And most of this was built over a period of more than a couple of years. In fact, the approval for all of this goes back to 2018, which was 7 years ago. Osaka got approval in 2018 for this expo. This is essentially almost a decade in the making, and it just opened, and it runs until October. I believe the 13th of October. I think it's April 13th, October 13th. So it's a very long expo, just like the Chicago World Fair and others. And there's a misconception about the world. I know that Leyland is not asking about the World Fair, but maybe I'm wrong about this. I think that's part of the mud flood thing. But the World Fair in Chicago, that's the big one, the White City, and this is the one that usually gets the publicity, and that's what you see the pictures of. They actually opened that fair in 1893. They built some of it in 1890, 91, 92, and then probably a few months before the fair opened, they finished building it. But they were building, they didn't just build that in 2 years. They were building that over a decade or more, because like this expo that got approval in Osaka, the city got approval in 2018. Chicago got approval in like the mid 1880s, and they had been building, some actually other cities were building for the World Fair that didn't even get the World Fair. So some cities were building, and then Chicago got it, and then they just tore things down, or they just repurposed them or reused them. Chicago was building that stuff over a period of 10 years or more, which throws that whole conspiracy into disarray. Plus, if you look up Chicago Museum Science World Fair, I believe the Museum of Science, the Museum of Science and Industry is still around today. And so when they say everything was torn down, not true. The Museum of Science and Industry is still there today. And also, I think this is called Jackson Park. They had to drive these stakes down into the water. Well, that's exactly what they would have had to do here, because this is an artificial island. They built it on an artificial island. And these fairs are about technology. So anything that you would have seen at the Chicago Fair, moving walkways, now that's something we have in airports. I was on a moving walkway seeing advertisements for the Osaka Fair when I was at the Osaka airport last weekend going to Kyoto. And I was thinking, so that piece of evidence has been presented as, well, where did that technology come from? So you're telling me that the Tatarian Empire had moving walkways, and that was the height of their technology, that 100 years later we would have them in airports, and that's all that's left over, minus a few other things. I just don't buy it. And I think that the conspiracy is really sloppy because they built it over 10 years. It's not unheard of to have bizarre. I mean, you know what they had at this expo in Osaka? They had flying cars. Were those flying cars functional? Sort of. Pieces broke off of one of them, so they had to halt the exhibit. So you could say in 100 years, they had flying cars. Where's that technology today? Well, it failed. It didn't work. So I just don't buy that whole thing. Tatari and the mud flood and all that's part of it. And when you learn that you can't trust all the history, then people start to think, well, this alternative thing must be true. Maybe, but probably not. There's probably a lot more to it than that. And I'm not attacking you, Leyland. I'm just saying that's my assessment, and I have done shows on that in the past. Flux is right. We just need a government that believes in the rule of law and actually enforces it. Simple as that. Simple as that. Of course, I get into some trouble because I put things on the internet, on social media, not because I'm trying to make people upset. I'm usually just posting things because I want to save, the documents for myself. It's kind of like a record. And I saw this. This was a video that I had seen. I took a screenshot of it where Trump's asked about the Declaration of Independence, and he says, it's about unity and love. And I thought, no, it's a declaration of war. It's a declaration of separation. I mean, I guess you could argue unity of the colonies, but it's a declaration of separation. That's what it's called, independence. So you're becoming independent from the crown. So it's not about unity, and it's not about love, because they accuse the king of some pretty awful stuff in that document if you actually read it. And by default, because it was a declaration of independence from the crown, it was a declaration of treason and war. It's not a declaration of unity and love. It's a declaration of separation and really hatred of the monarchy. This is part of the problem. I don't know if Flux agrees with that, but it's part of the problem. You can't even, I mean, like, seriously, if you're the president, you should be able to at least give the superficial explanation that I gave. That is really scary, actually. It's a declaration of unity and love. No, it's not. It's a declaration of disunity, dissolving relations, treason, war, and some harsh accusations against the king. Doesn't make me a liberal. Just makes me an observer of reality. But it would be nice if we could just follow the law. Someone actually told me the other day, they said, well, I follow God's law. They're a Christian conservative. So, well, I'm pretty sure that God's law would be the basis for the laws that I'm hoping that you abide by, which include the right to free speech and protest and publication and your right to defend yourself, which is what the Second Amendment ultimately is about. Also, your right to be secure in your papers and your person, to not be searched at any moment. Do you have your papers? We need to see who's in your house. You could be harboring an illegal alien. We should just follow the actual rule of law, but who cares, right? All right. Ellie says, do you think the government has full control? According to John Stockwell, I said John Stockton for a second. The CIA was running paramilitary troops. Even the government, including the president, didn't know about. Of course not. Of course not. The president's on a need to know basis. And even if they do know, they have plausible deniability. They don't know. They have no idea. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to think about where I read that story. I think it was in a book. I'm trying to think what the book was. Maybe it was Jim. Maybe it was Jim Mars's Ruled by Secrecy. I can't remember what book it was, but I think it was that book, Ruled by Secrecy by Jim Mars, where there's a quote. It's a real quote from the president of the United States prior to Pearl Harbor, the attack on Pearl Harbor, and the Germans had told the Americans, "Hey, there's a Japanese fleet. They're going to attack Pearl Harbor," and they didn't know the exact date, but they knew that the fleet was heading in that direction. And the U.S. government absolutely knew that the Japanese fleet it wasn't missing. They knew, maybe they didn't know pinpoint exactly where it was, on the water, but they knew it was heading toward Hawaii. And they even placed guards at some of the watchtowers who were not fully trained. And my point is, back to what Ellie is saying, is that the attack on Pearl Harbor, FDR reportedly said that what he doesn't know, he can't do anything about. And that's in response to being told the Japanese are about to attack Pearl Harbor. Well, if I don't know, I can't do anything about it. Kind of like if you watched Oppenheimer and the depiction of President Truman. He's like, he's talking to Oppenheimer, who's got regrets, and he's like, well, you got blood on your hands, boy. He's like, go ahead and wipe it off. He's like, I ain't got that. He's like, I'm happy to have the blood on my hands. Kill those damn Japs. Of course, they're psychopaths. Truman was an absolute monster. I mean, not just for that reason, but he was a monster. I love Christopher Nolan movies because even though he's British and he has a certain view of history, the guy is very, very educated. And if you watch Dunkirk, there's a whole part there about how Hitler could have killed everybody on that beach and chose not to because he wanted an alliance with the British for like the 5th time to go into Russia. But if you say that, which I did one time in a conversation with somebody at work, and they reported me to the office and said I was glorifying Hitler by pointing out a historical fact, it's like, Jesus Christ. But yes, so of course the president doesn't always know, but sometimes the president does know and signs off on it, but they have plausible deniability. Although I don't think by any means presidents have full knowledge of what's going on. It wouldn't benefit them to have full knowledge of what's going on. Let's see what else is in this chat. Yes, the ring that controls them all. Okay, I'm so sorry. Let me scroll down. There are so many comments, and I've been so far behind here. Mm. Jackie Byers, how do you give your right to be ruled by others? You don't need permission from rulers to live, speak, eat, be happy, and so on. When there are rules on that which is natural, it is now privilege. Well, I'm not 100% sure what the context is of what you're saying. Maybe I'll give you two responses if that is actually a question. You don't need permission to do these things. Watch. I'm going to take a drink of water. I didn't need permission from Trump to do that, or Biden, or anybody else, or the Japanese prime minister. I can take that drink of water. The other answer to that question is, I mean, that's an obvious thing. But the answer to that question is those rights are not written down so that the government is in effect giving you those rights. The rights are written down so the government looks at them and says, oh, we can't take away people's right to free speech because it says right here that we can't do that. It's not about giving you the rights. It's about making sure that the government sees that they don't have the right to take away those inherent rights. If that's what Jackie's referring to, that's kind of the point. And if I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong about that. You know, Matt, that actually does seem kind of true in a lot of ways. Because when you I haven't traveled a lot, but I came to Japan. I found out that this water right here has no fluoride in it. They don't fluoridate their water. They did in the 90s. They tried it, didn't work, it was worthless, so they stopped. 25, 30 years ago, the Japanese knew that fluoride didn't work. Now, they still might use it at dentists, but if you choose, you can ask for it, or maybe they give it to you and you can say, I don't want it. But it's not in the water over here. And then when you learn, oh, they also don't, not just in Japan, but like in all of Europe and most of Asia, there's a lot of terrible things that you can buy over here to eat that I wouldn't consider food. But like generally speaking, the ingredient lists are different in Europe and Asia. So when you learn about that, and then when I go outside and I swear to God, I have not seen an actual chemical trail. I've seen a lot of contrails, well, actually only a handful really of contrails since I've lived here. I haven't seen an actual chemical trail the whole time I've lived here, 2 months plus, and the 3 months I was here before, almost half a year. Zero like full chemtrails. I've seen contrails, maybe things that in retrospect I could say maybe that was a chemtrail. No, that was probably contrails. So if I don't see that in the air and there's no fluoride in my water and most of the food is much different, then yeah, when I compare that to the US, assuming Matt lives in the US, maybe Australia too, as another country, yeah, it does kind of feel like you're in an open air prison. It does feel like that. That doesn't mean the Japanese don't use pesticides. They do. It doesn't mean that there probably aren't 27 other things in this water that I shouldn't be drinking. But, 27 is a downgrade from about 3,000, if you catch my drift. Sorry, Trump told me to take another drink of water there. Apologize. All right, so let's see what else we have in the chat here. Jackie says she'll write me an email. Black's Law explains a lot about the words in the Bill of Rights. Yeah, it does. It does, actually. I used to have a copy of that. It was the book was like this big and this thick. It was actually, Jackie, for reference point, I used the Black's Law Dictionary to draft those legal letters during the pandemic to get myself and a bunch of other people, maybe even some of you, out of masks or vaccines at work to retain employment. It worked about 8 out of 10 times. But the problem with that is when you're showing somebody the law or facts and they don't want to believe it or they're too dumb to believe it, it doesn't matter. That's part of the problem. It's like trying to explain to people, yes, gang members who have committed crimes and raped people and done bad things to kids, they don't have due process necessarily, especially if they're legal. It depends on the case. But visa holders and green card holders do have certain rights, and you do have to abide by those. And trying to explain that to somebody who's just one dimensional, you can't do that. So I found that Black's Law Dictionary is very helpful. And yes, Jordan Maxwell used to talk about that too. He's actually the guy that encouraged me to get a copy of it in the first place many years ago. Unfortunately, if you show that to people, they have no idea what you're talking about. They have to pay medical bills in Europe and Florida. In Florida? Or medical bills in Europe? Don't know much about the medical system over there. I know the medical system over here in Japan's a lot different. In fact, you don't have to pay as much for medicine when the mass majority of people are really healthy. That's a magical thing you'll notice. It's like, well, the healthcare over here, you pay a little bit into it, some of it through work. It's not socialist necessarily, but it's not really that expensive. Why? Because most people are pretty healthy. Now, some people that have virtually no income, of course, it's going to be expensive to them. But if you have a relatively decent job, it's not as expensive and it's better quality. In fact, I think you can find that in most statistical sources in terms of the quality of the healthcare. Japan, probably even parts of Europe, have better healthcare than the U.S. and pay less. Although it depends on where you live. Again, every situation is a little different, just like everybody's body's a little different, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, Florida. Florida is spraying. Are you referring, Matt? Are you referring to chemtrails in Florida? I thought the governor just banned those. I thought the governor banned chemtrails. I wouldn't say now. I'm from Florida, and they used to spray that stuff everywhere. Everywhere. Yes, but chemicals in the air. Well, yeah. But that's not just in the US. That is everywhere. I mean, I think that we have as humans, we've manufactured what, 80 to 90,000 different synthetic chemicals. And I mean, in some form or another, there's a giant percentage of that being sprayed or that already has been sprayed and remains in the environment. So yeah, it does feel like that. Although again, there are ways to combat that, and I mean, I always promote and advocate for taking personal responsibility, because even if that is the case, that you're in an open air experimental laboratory, trying to limit your exposure to it is probably best. But let's also be honest, that's not the main reason why Americans are so unhealthy and so sick. Let's just be honest about that's just not the case, because it's happening elsewhere and people around the world are not all like Americans, and they're not all sick like Americans, even in countries where they do that kind of thing. So there's something else going on in America. All right. Matt says Central Florida was heavily sprayed over the winter. It just stopped, I hope for good. I hope you're referring to actual chemtrails and not winter storms, because there's a lot of that going around, if you catch my drift. Oh God, there's mist. It must be chemical mist. Well, or it could just be mist. That's also possible. It might be a chemical mist, or it just might be mist, because that happens too in nature. Same here, 1232. I know you won't agree. It's a great way to start off a comment. Probably means I won't agree. But I do think Trump is going to expose it all. I think we are in unprecedented times. I think the president is taking the whole world on. I think that that's what the whole Trump presidency is designed by marketers to make you think. And I think the Trump presidency is going to be used to welcome the New World Order under the guise of America first. In other words, the US gets to run the New World Order, not China. I think that's the deal that was made. You can make America great, but you're going to have to run the beast system from America. So yes, we definitely disagree, but hey, that's okay. That's what I think. Okay, as this list doesn't seem to be updating as fast over here on my end on StreamYard. Maybe that's because I have the YouTube thing still running. I should also check X. I apologize if you're on X and you've commented and I haven't said anything. Let me go to X and let's see what's on X. I swear to God, I think there's a ghost in the machine for my X. Okay, so one listener asked me on X, what did you end up doing with your guns? I sold them to Mexican drug cartels like our government does. Now, I sold them to a couple of friends legally, lawfully, I have the paperwork, but I sold them to a couple of friends who enjoyed firearms. My wife actually shot guns. We went with a friend of mine to shoot guns, and she never shot guns before. But she took the pistol. We had a shotgun. I'm trying to think, what did we have? We had a 22 rifle. We had a very large assault rifle shotgun. I don't know what I'm not a huge gun guy. It's like an assault shotgun. My friend had like a, I don't know, it was massive, and she shot that. That's a little scary to shoot. I don't like shotguns. I like my AR. He had a much fancier AR than I did, and we were shooting, and I'm like not great, but I'm decent. I'm just like an American. I grew up around guns, so like naturally there's an ability there to shoot it. Kind of like my wife, like she grew up around origami, so she can kind of just do it without thinking about it, even though she's not like a master origami crafts person. She shot some of those guns, and then she got the handgun, and she was just bang, 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 and she hit the target most of the time. And my friend was like, "You never shot a gun before? That was really, really good." And then I actually went and read. Maybe the AI heard us saying that, and that because I pulled something up on my computer, and I read this article about how women actually tend to be better at firing handguns. Something about the hand-eye coordination. She had never shot a gun in her life, just bang, 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 bang. Pretty interesting. So we did, but after that, we sold the guns right after. I wanted to shoot them one more time. She came to the U.S. and wanted to shoot them too, because it's very America to do that. So we shot some guns. D. Hodges, you lost all your guns in a does it say boating? Oh, I thought it said a booting accident. I was like, well, what's a booting accident? They booted your car. You tripped in your boots. It was a boating accident. How long ago was that? Did the guns fall in the water? How did you lose your guns? And Jackie says the three major manufactories Trump helped bring in are not going to provide American jobs. They are automated, no taxes for robots and no jobs for consumers, but hey, made in America. Pretty much says it all there. Hodges says, yeah, everything sank. Well, that's unfortunate. Did you ever get the guns back? Or I feel like that's something you probably should have alerted the authorities to. Like, hey, I just lost a bunch of guns in this pond or this lake. So nobody just digs them up later, unless was it in the ocean? That sounds like a very Florida man thing to do. I went out on a boat in the bay and all my guns fell overboard. Are you a Florida man, D. Hodges? I can't tell by your picture. Is that a beach behind you? Hodges might be a Florida man. All right, so we're an hour and a half into this. I was planning maybe an hour. Enough people showed up that we could go longer. So here's what we'll do. I will ask you, because I know it's getting a little bit later there on the East Coast. So do you have any questions for the secret teachings? Do you have any questions for me? Do you have anything that you would like to add? Do you have anything that you would like to share? I'll give you a few minutes to add this to the conversation. No super stickers. I've heard of that. I don't know what that is. Probably another way I'm losing money because I don't tap into the untapped potential of the internet. But if you want to send $10, you can do that to our Cash App or the website, tstradio.info. If you just visit the website, it's very simple, tstradio.info. I think there's a link also in the show description. If you click, actually don't even have to go to the website. Just click the link below and it shows you here that there's X, Facebook, Cash App. You can just do it through those means. We can't do PayPal because PayPal suspended us. Someone asked me, why don't you just do PayPal? Because we got banned from PayPal with no specific reason. D. Hodges is a Texas man, San Antonio. So you didn't answer the question. I don't think. Are the guns still there? Did you get the guns out of the water, or they just sank and disappeared? I would think that, when I hear something like that, I think, well, 100 years from now, 500 years from now, archaeologists finding these guns, knowing what they are, maybe not knowing what they are. I think most of our history is probably buried in the sands of the ocean. Let's see what else. Super chats. Yes, I don't know how to do a super chat, frankly. We just do Cash App, or you can do, I mean, really, if you want to support the show, rather than just donating, you can buy a book. We have digital books for $10. You can see if I can show you the website here. Most of you know this anyway, but I can show you the website. You can buy a book. There's different books. Occult Arcana is my big one. You can buy a digital copy for $15, for example. So if you don't have a book, rather than just donating $10, get something for it, like Occult Arcana. Some of these other books are like my Liberty Shrugged book. It's $10 for the PDF. So you get a book. You can do that through Stripe, or you can do that through Cash App. Click the Stripe link. It will bring up one of these pages. If you click the Cash App link, it will bring up one of these pages. I'm like a radio drug dealer, because I can't use other platforms. I just got Cash App, but Stripe does work. So there's those options, or you can subscribe to the show and you can do $10 a month. We also have yearly subscriptions and lifetime subscriptions, if you feel like that's worth it, if you think you're going to be listening to the show for that long. Lifetime's $500, I think. Again, we've been doing this for so incredibly long. I'm at a loss for words sometimes. That's okay, Jackie. There are typos and misspellings everywhere, even in some of the most famous books written by famous authors. There's typos and misspellings. Although the internet has certainly contributed greatly to that. I don't see the super sticker, so I can send you money on YouTube. It's time you make that Wilcock money. That's right. Make that Wilcock money, that cash money from David Wilcock. If I wanted to make that kind of money, I could just sit here and I could tell you that I went to Mars, had sex with an iguana woman on Venus. I did a 30 and back. People are talking about the 20 and back. I did a 30 and back. And then you just give me money because you're a fucking idiot. That's pretty much what it is. So give me money because I made up stories. I also had, don't really want to admit it, but I got blown by a reptilian. So give me money. That's pretty much what all this stuff is, isn't it? Just people making shit up. I can make that up on the spot, but most people are sophisticated about it and watch Star Trek first. Jackie says, wow, am I flagged again for past PayPal exchanges to TST? Yes, you definitely, absolutely flagged. I'm pretty sure that we got flagged on PayPal because of a previous radio network. Don't worry, though. I reported their business to the Canadian, if you see something, say something, snitch line. I reported them for being promoting racism and religious discrimination. So don't know how that worked out, but I did report them. Yes, don't use the trademark. These weren't blue chickens, Jackie. These were turquoise chickens. There's a difference. Turquoise, blue. Mine were turquoise or red. Really, whatever makes the most money. I don't really care. Whatever you're going to give me the most money for us, that's what we'll do. Mitch says, it's at a point now that nobody would ever believe someone if it was true. That's an interesting observation, isn't it? Exactly. You probably wouldn't even believe somebody if it were true, which then makes you think, is some of it true? And maybe that's the next layer of it. They want to make it so insane. By they, I mean maybe the CIA. They want to make it so, or maybe the aerospace industry. They want to make it so crazy that you start to think, why would they go to these lengths to make it this crazy? Maybe some of it's true, but it's all fake. And then you start to go back and, dig through it to see what's maybe real. It's really just a big mind F is what it is. Is what it is. They've gone to Pound Town on your brain is what's happened. That is a very good point, Mitch, though. In all seriousness, maybe some of it's true. I mean, frankly, I don't. That's the thing about the secret space beep is that clearly there's a secret space beep because former astronauts have said that there is, but it's not 420 and back. It's like projects at NASA and projects that the government runs that are not in the public eye, which is probably what they do with that 800 and something billion dollars that continues to remain missing, plus the trillions before that goes missing from the Pentagon's budget alone, not to mention the other hundreds of millions and billions and maybe even trillions of dollars that go missing from other agencies, which I love. That's another thing. I love how suddenly it's like, oh my God, the government was wasting $50,000 on this. The government was wasting $1 billion on this. Where the fuck have you been? You know, where have you been? Well, don't get upset at people for just realizing this. Just realizing this? I mean, I don't even know. What would an adequate example be? Maybe I'm trying to think of what movie it was. I think it was. Oh, I know what it was. It was Dumb and Dumber. It was Dumb and Dumber where Jim Carrey's in the, was he in a coffee shop or something? And he comes back in and he sees the paper. I think it was the moon landing. He's like, we went to the moon. That's great. Like 50 years too late. That's kind of what this is like. It's like, hey, did you guys know that the government wasted $1 million? Yeah, I did know that. Well, don't get upset at people that are just figuring it out. Okay, well, then did you guys hear that Japan bombed Pearl Harbor? I just found this out. It's really awful. See, back in the 40s, I'm sure people would buy that too. I'm really sure people would buy that. Maybe I should just do that. I should start sarcastically telling old stories. Maybe I should do that. Let me tell you guys, did you know December 7th, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor? I bet you didn't know that, but that has been discovered in the new Doge leak. They found that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. They also found that the government wasted billions of dollars and then trillion. And they could, did you know that before 9/11, they couldn't find trillions of dollars? This is why I think it's all psychology. It's all psychology. All psychology. Do you know we went to the moon? Holy shit, I didn't know that. Same here, 1232. Is your show now on Clyde's website? Okay, so I should show this because a lot of you are Ground Zero fans. So here's the bottom line. Here's Clyde's website. I don't know if Chris is still here, but Chris did a great job with the website. And if you go to, I might have to log in. Let me see if I can log in first. I'll log in, and then you don't have to log in, I don't think, to get access to, or maybe you do. Let me see. Yeah, members content, schedule, about, hosts. They recently updated the website, so here we go. Okay, so yeah, if you're on the website, you go to hosts. I don't think you have to log in. Maybe you do. It's not my website. I'm usually logged in, so and then wherever they put the secret teachings, where did they put the secret teachings? We were on page 2. Maybe we're on page 1 now. Maybe we're not listed at all now. maybe we're not on here anymore. I don't know. I thought we were on here somewhere. Did I miss the show? Oh no, it's there. If it were a blue chicken, it would have abducted me. Yeah. So if you're on the website, the Spreaker link is right here. And you can scroll through all the shows. I upload best ofs on the weekend, but the show is Monday through Friday. That's the same archive. If you had typed in TST Radio Spreaker on the internet, it's the same archive. They just embedded it on the website. Same archive. or TST Radio, Apple, Spotify, whatever you want, whatever platform you use. Apple Podcasts, which is going to open up probably another tab here. But there's that. The easiest way to find the show, though, is, again, just to go to the website. If you're looking for other links, and just click free archive, and you'll see the same stream. And then you have all the links here, whatever you want to listen on: iHeart, Spotify, Deezer. What is that? Podcast Addict, GeoSavan, Castbox. This is Podchaser. And then there's Apple. I never check the reviews on these websites. I should check the reviews on here. Good enough to get banned from iTunes at least one time. Let's hope that was the only one. Gnarly Sheen. Just heard about this site on TST tonight. Had to join to support one of my favorite radio hosts. Thank you, Gnarly Sheen. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways to catch the show, but it all runs through this stream. So when you listen here, you keep it running. That supports the show financially. If you want to get the advertisement-free show, you can subscribe at the top of the page. All right, let's check one more time the chat room. Any other questions, any other comments, anything else before we go? We will do this again because it was very, very successful. What else do we have? 2 minutes behind on the stream. Okay, well, it's going to look really weird now because I pulled 2 minutes up on the stream probably 5 minutes ago. I'm going to time warp. Matt says, Erbody wants that generational wealth in 4 years. TST is also in ground zero. Yes, I just showed that. Matt Armitage says, I found the secret teachings through Kev Baker. Salute Kev Baker. What a great guy. Too bad he passed away. Kev was too young, but Kev went pretty hard for as young as he was. Kev was a really good guy behind the scenes. He was just a fun guy. As a matter of fact, I actually put here. Let me bring this back up on the screen. I just put in the archive a best of with Kev Baker and Clyde. Actually, there was Clyde and Kev were on that show. It was 6 years ago. It's an old show. I just put that into the archive as a best. It's in the archive, but you don't have to scroll through 6 years of shows. But there it is as a best of. Yeah, Kev was a really fun guy. Kev used to go hard on the blue chickens. All right. I think that's pretty much the end of it. Does anybody have any other questions? Again, this was more of like a commentary and comment, a CNC, more so than a question and answer. Does anybody have any questions? All right. I don't think there's any more questions. Yes, I try to join. Let me respond to one more thing Jackie said. I also enjoy when you're in the GZP chat. See, this is the problem with the time zones. Right now, it is 10:55 a.m. here. Okay, translate that to wherever you are. It's 10:55 where I am. So it's pretty early here. In fact, my brain's all screwed up for two reasons: time zones, and I'm also learning Japanese and learning the time. So what is this in Japanese time? Gozen, which is AM. So Gozen Juji. Gozen Juji is 10. You have to think about it. Gozen Juji Goju Roku Fun. 10:56 a.m. So I don't know where you are, what time it is there. But it's really early here. So by the time Clyde's show starts, which is kind of the wind down of the evening for many of you, it's the wind up for me. I'm just getting up, or I've been up for a couple of hours, and I have to do my show. It's kind of hard to always be in the chat room. So there's a giant time difference depending on where you are. Pacific, Mountain, Central, Eastern, or listeners. I don't even like. Chris is in the UK, so I don't even know. It's on the other side of the world. I have no idea. I just message people like normal. Whenever they get back to me, they get back to me. Can't do that in the live chat, obviously, but that's maybe why I'm not always in there. Yes, Matt, we will do it again live. So maybe I'll just ask you this before you go. So how many of you think that once a month, 2 times a month, 3 times? I mean, you're all going to be greedy and say every day. I can't do that. But 4 times a month, once a weekend, what do you think's best? I think 2 times a month on the weekend, like maybe once in a while a Friday night actual The Secret Teaching show, and then maybe every once a month a week a Friday show, and then a weekend stream twice a month. Yeah, see as many as possible. I can't always do that, but I will do as many as I can. Reasonable 2 times a month. Okay. Jackie says 2 times a month. Michael says 1. Yes, I know you're greedy people. I'm greedy too. If I was listening to a show, I'd want the show to be on all the time too. Great show, Ryan. Look forward to summer your upcoming shows. You guys should breathe a moment, take a second, read what you're typing, and then send it forward to what my upcoming shows. Listening to them over the summer. If so, I think I get what you're saying. I'm just being sarcastic. Yes. I appreciate you listening to the show, Leland. Thank you. Isn't Leland the name of the character from Evil? Isn't that the devil, Leland? That's why that name made me feel weird. Leland. Is that the guy's? I forget. What's that guy's name in that show? Maybe it's not Leland. Okay, we'll try to do once a month, twice a month. This was kind of fun, and I'm surprised that as many people showed up as they did. So that's good. And hey, look at that. There's no, unlike a Disney video, there's no thumbs down on this this live stream. So that's good. That's good. Thank you. Leyland is from Evil. Yes. Okay. More special if once a month. Don't give too much at a time. All right. I like that perspective. I really enjoyed the live, says Sunny. Thank you, Ryan Gable. I had to work and wasn't able to participate as much as I like. Take care. You too, Sunny. Be careful with your job. Don't fall asleep while you're listening to the show. I'm glad you split off and went your own way. Well, it's kind of unintentional, but yeah, I going my own way, but having the affiliate with Ground Zero is nice. But being independent is a good thing, but obviously it has its downsides too. I think the consistency of this show is the only thing that's really saved it from total annihilation on the internet. Just continuous every night. That's probably what has saved us. All right, that's it. I know I keep saying anymore, but it's 11 a.m. here. It is Gozen Ju Ichiji, and I am going to have a day with nothing else to do. So I keep stretching this on. Michael, thank you. I'm proud of you guys too. Thank you. Thank you from Illinois. Big boxing match soon, so perfect timing. That's what I do. I line it up to big boxing matches. Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess let me do a test though, real quick before I let you go. Can you guys hear clearly? So you've listened to the show. So when I have the out for the show, or I have a bumper song, you hear the music very clear, like you were playing it on your iTunes. I'm going to play some random music, one of our bumpers. I want you to tell me if you can hear it clearly or if it kind of cuts in and out, something like that. Okay, here's some music. Does it cut in and out? Does it cut in and out, or is it okay? This is an actual test. I don't know, because the last time I tried to do maybe it was the Easter message, it kind of cut in and out. So I really don't know if it worked properly or not. It's fine, says Jackie. Not anymore. Sounds constant, says D. Hodges. Okay. Don't lose any more guns in the water. Be careful. Sunspots sounds okay. Play something else. I could play the David Wilcock rap. want me to play that? I'd have to be such an egotistic, narcissistic psychopath to play the David Wilcock rap. I want to so bad. I don't even know if I could find it though, folks. Where would it actually? Oh no, I do have it actually. It's on iTunes. In my eyes, my iTunes. Hold on, let me see if I can even find it. Oh, there's also. Oh, I also have the. I don't know if you guys even heard this one. I have the Eminem song I made from about. I don't know if I even played this one. I did it without me. I did a without TST version for Rovitics Media. There is a little there is a little Ryan on my shoulder saying, "Play it, play it, play it." Where's the angel at? He's stuck in traffic. God, this is unbelievable. Family Guy. There is. Oh, I have the Michael Vera song too. Yeah, I actually have a whole bunch of them. Here, I'll show you my screen. You can see it. Let's see if I think you can show probably show iTunes. No, they're not AI. It's real. I'm not AI. I'm real. What are you asking, Matt? Are you asking if I'm real? Yes, I'm real. Okay. This is my my list of songs I've made over the years. There's a lot of them. Yeah, these were there's the Michael Vera, the Troll song. That was a Michael Vera era song. There was the Troll Hunter. That was a Michael Vera era song. We made peace, by the way, so no issue with Michael. There's the Fringe song. I have that. And there's the Without TST song. Oh, and then these are the Cabal Roast. That's a classic. Here's the New Age Money. Hey, we get New Age Money. Cosmic Con Bathtub. And then there's Praise the Cash. Although Cambion won't talk to me anymore because well, actually, I don't even know why. I can't even really say why. I think he thinks I'm a Nazi. Praise the Cash. There's the Wilcock Roast song. So I did make a Wilcock Roast song. R-I? A-I? Early Girl. Well, Early Girl, you're very late. We are 2 hours into the show, and I'm about to shut it down. Get here earlier next time, I guess. Oh, we have a troll too. I do like trolls. I do enjoy a troll. Okay. UFO money. That's a good. Yeah, UFO money. Yeah, Early Girl. So we're deciding whether or not we should do this stream once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month, 4 times a month. It's free. I don't do super chats. I don't do money bombs. You can subscribe to the show, or you can listen to the free archive, or you can use Cash App. I'm not really good at making money for the show, but if you show up for the show, then we'll be here. Whether that's listening, buying a book, subscribing. Thank you so much. I could get the UFO money. Maybe I could get the UFO money if I lie. What are you saying, Mitch? By the way, Persian in nature. What you said that 3 or 4 times tonight? What does that mean? Windmills are actually Persian. They're not Dutch. They're actually Western Asian, Middle Eastern. What are you referencing with Persian in nature? Christianity? Maybe there's a delay in the chat, but yeah, what are you saying? Persian in nature. I've seen that 3 or 4 times. I want to know what you're saying. I do like trolls. I kind of want to play with the troll, but I should probably go. I keep dragging this on like a kid who doesn't want to go to bed, except I got a whole day ahead of me. Mitch, what do you mean by Persian in nature? It's going to bug me if I don't know what you mean by Persian in nature, unless I'm missing something from the chat. Okay. Well, I guess Mitch isn't gonna comment. Maybe Mitch is working on something. But you saw the list of songs. Maybe I'll play the song some other time. Thank you, Leyland. I appreciate it. Well, I guess I could ask Early Girl, do you have any questions? This is a Q&A. We've been through 2 hours. Any questions? Now, this is some fun. Now, see, this for me is fun. I love watching people that do stuff like this on YouTube and then they just like attack each other. The internet is really a great place for it's like it's like when you go to Walmart and you watch people. That's kind of what these chat rooms are like. I like chat rooms more than I like the actual video broadcast sometimes. People just they start going after each other and they start attacking each other. That stuff is fun. Thanks, but not this time. Okay. Next time, get a question. Oh yes. Go to town on Pound Town. See, this is what makes the internet so fun, but also just so why I don't take calls. And everybody has been a great listener tonight and a great participant in this conversation. So I think 2 hours and changed. We're pretty much at the end of it. All right, so we'll do this maybe once or twice a month. When there is a stream, I will have it posted on X and posted on Facebook, and it will be on YouTube here. So if you haven't subscribed to YouTube, become a subscriber. It's free. I'm drawing this on not to make money because I don't make any money off of it. I'm drawing this on because I'm having a good time with speaking with listeners. But if you want to ask me a question next time you hear something on a show, just write it down and save it. I'll probably do another one of these streams next weekend because I want to make sure that I want to make sure that at the beginning of doing stuff like this that it's consistent. So maybe I'll do one next weekend and the weekend after, and then we'll make it like 2 times a month after that or something like that. By the way, I've neglected X tonight. We have there's 103 people listening on X on top of the YouTube. And I guess those are the only 2 options that StreamYard lets me use. So, all right, thank you for tuning in tonight. I wonder if the Viking, there's so many people the Viking could be. Is it Rob Davenport? Is it, well, I couldn't sit here and go down a list of how many people I've pissed off over the years. Rob Davenport. Hey, Todd Jones, have you been here long, Todd? Thank you for coming into the show. Todd's a good guy. He's listened to the show for a long. He's on X. Howdy, Todd. All right, I'm just droning on and 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 on. Some of you probably are enjoying this. I'll let Pound Town and the Viking go at it, and we'll say goodnight. Thank you for listening to the Secret Teachings test stream Q&A. I will speak with all of you later, and I encourage you to visit our website if you have not. Grab a book, subscribe, and if you don't know about the show, I assume you all do, but maybe somebody doesn't listen to this later. Visit tstradio.info or TST Radio on Spreaker. And all of you listening, please, please, please leave us a review on Apple because people like the Viking do, and it makes the show look bad when there's like 20,000 people that download an episode and then one person has a bad comment. When, if a percent of the other 20,000 would say something, then it would make the show look a lot better. So please comment on our Apple and let us know and others know what you think of the show. All right, we'll bring up some music here. I would really would like to play the David Wilcock rap, but maybe next time. That's what you can look for. That's what you can look forward to next time. The David Wilcock rap. I will do that next time on the show. All right, thank you for tuning in. Have a great night, and I'll speak with you on the next episode. Let's play some music. What kind of music? We have some new songs here. All right, new bumper song. Have a great night.